Hi there, welcome to No Nonsense Whiskey, or should I say No Nonsense Brandy. My name's Vin PF, and on today's episode we're covering something that isn't whiskey, but that is very whiskey influenced, hence the reason why I'm kind of giving myself a little bit of a hall pass on this episode and bringing you something that's brandy. A massive thanks to Burnt Faith for sending this bottle over to me for review. You can see why I bumped it up the list, because at the moment, I'll say it's right at the top of the show. This is a very limited availability English brandy. Now, I've released this video a little early. It's going to be going live when this is going live. So this goes live actually Wednesday at midday UK time, and it runs for 72 hours. There's only 800 bottles, so I guess they're expecting to sell that out. But it's only going to be available for 72 hours for whatever reason, and I guess after that maybe you'll only be able to get it from the distillery or whatnot. But if you are interested, right at the top of the show, make sure you go and check out the links below, because you're only going to be able to get this for the next couple of days. On to the actual review then. So today then we've got this brand new brand called Burnt Faith, and they're a distillery in London that are a brandy house essentially. You know, they're making what they're describing as kind of British brandy in whatever guise it comes in. Now this has all come about because the guy who founded it, Simon Wright and co, they big fans of brandy and cognac and whatnot, and they were touring around the cognac regions. And cognac's a spirit that I really enjoy, you know, but it's just like Scotch really. It's so steeped in its own traditions and its own protections that sort of limits any kind of innovation. So they have to have within the cognac region, with it has to be kind of French oak and all stuff like that. So, you know, there are more rules to it, but it's just like all kinds of whiskey. So that's why I think it's quite relevant today. Now, what they're doing is they're obviously not producing cognac because that's impossible. They're not in the cognac region. Brandy, however, is just a generic term for that spirit that's distilled from wine, essentially from grapes instead of grain. So they can do that wherever they like, and because there's no kind of rules like that in terms of like British or English brandy, they can kind of do whatever they like within the realms of actually tasting similar but different. So what these guys have done so far, this is their second release. The first release, what they're calling Batch 1, is more up your kind of brandy street, and that's readily available. You can get that right now. If you're interested in me covering that, then I might see if I can get a bottle so you can see my thoughts of it. But essentially, it's a normally distilled brandy. They use 4 different grape types. I'm going to have to refer to some notes here because it's a lot of information. The grape types are Trebbiano, Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay and Muscat Blanc. That's their 4 base grapes. Now in their first release they used 4 different cask types, so technically 5. They used an initial aging cask, which was just, you know, generic kind of brandy cask, and then they finished in a mixture of ex-bourbon casks that had also Spanish brandy in it. Then they had some ex-Pinot de Chante, ex-cognac and ex-cherry liqueur. So, you know, kind of what you'd expect, right? This release, however, and why I'm bringing it today, it's been exclusively aged in ex-bourbon casks. Heaven Hill ex-bourbon casks, if you're interested. So, didn't have anything else in it. Just straight up that. So, I guess what they're trying to do with this is not only do things a little bit differently, but kind of bridge that gap in between whiskey and brandy, which I appreciate because I should have said earlier, really, that I'm not really a big brandy guy. I really enjoy the liquid, but I don't know much about the category, and I certainly don't explore it that much. I've got a cognac on the shelf, and that's it. And then this brandy will be joining it, and that's all I've got on that kind of category. It's not the only ones I've had in the past. I've covered some in different cognacs and whatnot, but I'm no expert in that kind of field, nor whiskey, to be honest. But that's where we're at. So yeah, there's a lot gone into it. It's a 40%er, as these things tend to be. It's going to run for about 60 quid, so it's not cheap. So you're going to have to really be interested in this, I think, to jump for it. So the other one is about 35 quid, so it's a little bit more accessible. But I guess this one's a little bit more special. So yeah, I think we should just get into the tasting of it, see what we got, and see what you guys might think of it. So yeah, there's the liquid. It actually doesn't say anywhere on here, you know, the standard things, non-chill filtered, natural coloured, that sort of thing. I imagine, I genuinely don't know. I don't know how brandy works with that, so we'll just forget that and move on to it. Let's get onto the nose. Now for me, this has got a nose of all sorts of stuff going on. For me, it's sweet up front, it's vanillas, butterscotch. Then in the middle, there's a definite coconut flavour to it. It's like got that kind of like, it's almost like desiccated coconut, if you know what I mean. and then the tannins come out. I'm getting mocha and coffee beans off of this, so you can imagine that kind of like that bitter and that chocolatey vibe coming through. That's what I'm getting off this. Interesting. Let's try on the palate. Okay, you get an initial sweetness, a little bit like brown sugar, and then that gives way a lot easier on the palate than it does on the nose. The sweetness on the nose sticks about a bit more, straight into that coconut again, and then that's where this kind of like subtle rolling smoke comes over, which I'm guessing is part of the ex-bourbon barrel experience. You know, that's going to be like charred oak, so you're getting a lot more of that kind of like, it's really hard to describe. It isn't strong, it's just a small little waftiness that's coating the palate, which is really nice. And then you get more of those coffee notes coming through, and then for me that mocha has almost morphed into like a dark chocolate, that kind of like, it's like almost bitter on the back end, which is interesting because it starts off sweet and ends up so much so. Let's have another quick sip. Now for me, the finish is, you know, it's fairly short. It's short to medium, I would say, but it's nice and peppery. The sweetness sort of comes back a bit with the bitterness, which is really interesting. But one thing I like about this is that the flavour profiles throughout this stick with it during that kind of end tail off, where I find a lot with whiskey that the initial awesomeness tends to drop off a little bit towards the end, and you end up with just kind of like a spicy ABV attack almost, which, you know, I tend to enjoy, I'll be honest, but I'm enjoying this. I'm still able to taste it now, which is really interesting. So although the clear mouthfeel is gone, the flavours are still knocking around, which I'm enjoying that. Now for me, this is a very exciting thing because it's something that allows me as a whiskey drinker. You know, that's my thing. You know, even off camera, whiskey is my main bag. I have a couple of beers that I buy over and over again. I'm not really that adventurous. So when it comes to like even other spirits, I don't tend to bother. I tend to just stick to whiskey. I do like a brandy, as I said earlier. You know, I don't tend to reach for them. I don't tend to buy them, so it's nice for them to come my way naturally. But I find something like this really interesting because it is bridging that gap between the flavour profiles. It's, dare I say, it's the most whiskey-like brandy that I've ever tried, but it's still very distinctly brandy. You know, if you tried this in a blind lineup with whiskies, I think you'd be able to pick it out as the non-whiskey. But like I said, it's not trying to be whiskey, it's just trying to meet somewhere, you know, probably not even in the middle. It's definitely more towards the brandy side, but it's trying to give people like me and probably you guys watching a bit of a reason to jump over to it. Now, like I said earlier, 60 quid's a lot of money, but these things it's kind of normal at the moment, I would say, especially for a brand new brand, brand new distillery. These guys have only been like not open that long, so you know, these things are going to be, it's expensive to sort of make spirits like this. So yeah, I kind of give them a little bit of leeway on that. But yeah, if you're interested in it in any way, shape or form, go and check out the links in the description below. These aren't affiliate links for a change, so you can go and check those out. And again, let me know if you're interested in me kind of like talking about brandy and stuff every now and again, then let me know, and I might try and get the original brandy and do a bit of a side by side. But yeah, let me know what you think about this one. Let me know if you're going to go and jump into it. And like I said earlier, let me know if you want to do more non-whiskey stuff. But in any case, I'll enjoy this, and I'll see you again on more whiskey videos again coming soon. Cheers.